Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Time Tales. This is Miriam, and today I'm going to be doing some writing. I am working on a series right now called A Sovereign Future. Here is book 1, Isla's Treasure. It is a murder mystery. Keep you on the edge of your seat. Book 2 is a continuation. Barely. Our characters are in a new land with new struggles, political situations they have to handle, and lots of fun stuff. Grab your favorite hot drink, and let's get going. Sometimes I like to write it by hand because it's easier for me to focus. But then I have to put it in the laptop, and it's a little annoying, but you know what? It's okay. We found it. Took me a while though because I wrote this a minute ago and I didn't put it in right away, so it was a little hard to find. But we found it. Something that's pretty cool here is I'm writing this book in a mix-matched way compared to the last one. Last time I wrote a book, I used color codes and I wrote scene after scene, juggling multiple plots as I went, and several times I had to go back to find where I wanted to insert the next scene. This time, instead of doing that, I'm writing every other chapter of the book for plot 1. Then I'm gonna write the other chapters alternating for plot 2, and we'll see where plot 3 fits in. I'm not alternating for that one. Well, maybe once in a while, but I haven't decided yet. I am still figuring out my writing process. I love to do some outlining for the most major points, and then I do discovery writing for the rest of it, which always involves a lot of editing, a lot of scrapping, but we get some awesome things in the end. It's kind of a two-edged sword. You get super relatable characters, but then it was a lot of work to get there. So right now, alternating, I'm on chapter 9, which means I have actually written one. And I actually do have chapter 2. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. So this is the 6th chapter I am working on. Remember, I'm alternating, so it's not the 9th chapter, it's really the 6th that I'm actually gotten to, which I think is really a lot easier for me to keep track, especially because what was just a subplot has become even bigger as before. So juggling that's easier. It's also easier for the reader to keep track of what's going on. I found when I read it back, my own book, after I published it, I loved it and I thought there was a lot of good connection, but I would have liked to have a little more consistency. I still want to do scene changes, but having more of a theme per chapter, I guess, makes it easier in my brain. We're trying new things. This is only my 2nd book, so it's important to experiment to find out what your process is, and this is what I'm trying. There are some other writers actually that gave me this idea. I was reading C.S. Lewis. He does this in his Narnia series, alternating chapters. He doesn't do it for huge plots, but he does it once in a while when the characters split up to explain how the other group got there. I've also seen this happen in Cressida Cowell's How to Train Your Dragon series. which is very interesting, I find. I've also seen a book where there was just plain old scene changes rather decently frequently when characters were split up. Those ones where there's just a little blank space to tell you time has passed. Those are all really valid tools, but this time around I'm trying out that chapter alternating, and I want to do some scene changes, but not quite as many as I did in the last book. Something else I've seen in books is where they change the font when the character is speaking another language that's not the primary language of the whole book. And I don't mean like from English to another language. I mean, you know, fantasy, you can put whatever language you want, name it. Whatever the main language of the book is that the characters speak it. That's the main font. But when they change, it's easier to keep track of who's talking and what language is being spoken if you keep fonts consistent, which I think is a really awesome tool, and I'm using it in this one. We're gonna get some more light. It's fine. It's pretty cool, pretty satisfying to note that most of this has been handwritten in. It's notes and stray stories and outlines and things that may never see the light of day, but have helped me along my way on this writing journey. And believe me, it's a journey. It's like, I don't know what it's like to run a marathon, but I imagine this is what it feels like mentally, because this is a long process. But anyway, I have handwritten in like most of this. That's pretty cool. And I can hold it. Yeah, it's kind of like when I held my published book for the first time. That was a pretty fun moment, let me tell you. Pretty fun. It was like, I published it, yay, but once I held it in my hands, it was real. Can be hard not to repeat yourself sometimes, especially if you can't think of another word for it, or if the only other word you can think of is one your audience really won't know. But try your best to use synonyms, word variety, other nouns, other descriptions, and you'll find that your writing has a lot more style to it. It's more enjoyable. It forces you to think of things in a new way that you wouldn't have before, because it was easier to say the same word over and over than find new avenues to say the same thing. But it adds a lot more personality, I find, and you want to show what's going on instead of tell. So if I say, someone said a funny joke and they laughed really hard and were so pleased with how well their student was able to perform. Let's say this is from the perspective of a comedy coach, and they're just so proud. If I say it that way, it says what's going on, but it's telling, it's not showing them. Now, if I say the comedy coach bellowed, holding his stomach, on the verge of doubling over from how hilarious his student performed, and it sounds so much more interesting, and you get more relatability, and he's like, more specific is what it is. Same with not repeating yourself. if I just called him the comedy coach, and I'm still talking about him by the end of the sentence, I'm going to say, he walked over to the stage and gave his student a big pat on the back. I'm not going to say the comedy coach went over to the stage and gave the student a big pat on the back. But notice I said student twice. If I don't want to do that, which I'm going to try to avoid, instead I would say he walked over to the stage and gave his pupil a big pat on the back. Pupil still means student, but it's different. So now we went from the coach laughed really hard at his student for how well he performed the joke. Coach walked over to the stage and gave his student a big pat on the back. 2, the comedy coach held his stomach, nearly doubling over it out at how hilariously his student had performed. He walked over to the stage and gave his pupil a big pat on the back. That sounds a lot better than the first way. Not that you can't use. Anything is at your disposal. You're the writer. You get to choose. If you're going to do that, do it intentionally. So like, if I want to emphasize a point, especially if I want to remind the reader of something, I might say word for word or nearly word for word the same sentence to kind of jog their memory. So, for instance, the last sentence before that chapter begins, the previous chapter, it ends with something like, so they were out of the frying pan and into the mystery. Then the chapter name is Into the Mystery. So I use that same language format so that it feels connected, but I used it intentionally. So know what tools you've got, and once you know that, you can do anything. This is Write With Me Wednesday on Tea Time Tales, where we hang out, I share some writing tips, and we get inspired. Now get out there and get writing.